Hi, and welcome back to Grassroots Crypto, where I like to teach people about crypto. This is a continuation from my last video here, where I talked about asymmetrical versus symmetrical deposits in a liquidity pool, and then simulating impermanent loss, and then demonstrating impermanent loss protection, withdrawing, and doing all that with the BTC pool. So if you haven't checked out part one, go ahead and do that now. In this video, we'll look at what is happening and look at all the numbers and how all that works. So the calculations, and learn more about how liquidity pools work. The information is not specific to THORChain. This is, well, impermanent loss protection is, but the general pool concepts applies to, all automated market makers and stuff like that. The two concepts I want to show of how pools get priced and how impermanent loss is path independent is something I really wanted to share and demonstrate, as information out there is quite hard to come by, and those finer details definitely took me a while to learn. So a note before we get into it, this is my disclaimer. The example I'm going to be following and showing is a simulated one for the purposes of teaching. It does not match the real world situation and is deliberately targeted for the worst case scenario. It's not indicative of what you'd expect from THORChain or other automated market makers like Uniswap and stuff like that. It's deliberately crafted and simplified for teaching purposes only. Additionally, the numbers, while close, are not 100% accurate. I haven't taken the time to calculate all the numbers to the nth degree, but they're designed to give you a good idea of how things work. All right, so just recapping, we have two BTC and we want to enter the BTC liquidity pool. So here's the spreadsheet. Here we have our BTC pool, and we actually have an example for symmetrical addition and asymmetrical. Our start position is the same with 4 million Rune and 1000 BTC, and we have the same price ratio here. So going in for symmetrical, I've gone and swapped this out beforehand. So I've added my 1 BTC, and this is before I enter the pool, and then got approximately 3,992 Rune out of that. Then I've arbed the pool to bring it back into balance before I've done my symmetrical add. And that's just to kind of give a realistic scenario, and then we can compare the fees compared going symmetrical versus asymmetrical. So we get approximately our 4,000 Rune, and we add that plus our 1 BTC. Now, whilst it's a little under, I'm just rounding here for the purposes of this example because 4,000 is just a nice, easy number. But just comparing the fee to if we were to do this asymmetrically add, we start off with exactly the same situation. Well, obviously, we're not adding. We're swapping first. So our swap is the same when we go ahead and add. And our fee that we would incur, as in the slip fee would incur, would be the same. So just wanted to show that as what is also depicted here, whether you add symmetrical or asymmetrical. There's no difference between swapping into symmetrical shares, then depositing that, or depositing asymmetrically and then being arbed to symmetrical. You'll still experience the same amount of net slip. The end balance is the same between the pools. It's just a minuscule difference. So when you go have a look at the end state for both of them, it's 2/10 of not much difference. So that's where we have for asymmetrical addition versus symmetrical addition. You pretty much pay the same slip, and the pool and your position will end up pretty much the same. So now moving on from there, we set up the scenario. I want to go through and have a look how pools are priced, because this is a really important concept, particularly when you to understand impermanent loss. If you don't know how pools are priced, you can't understand properly how impermanent loss works. So every automated market maker, that really is a tongue twister, will use a stablecoin pool to price its assets, and THORChain is no different. In something like Uniswap, they would use, Ethereum to USDT pool to find the prices of Ethereum. BepSwap uses the BUSD pool, and we're going to use the same thing in our example in order to price the pool. And I'm just going to reset the spreadsheet here because Rune is at $10. Okay, sorry about that. We assume that this pool has already been arbed and is in balance, because if this is not right, then it upsets the prices of everything in the protocol. So the depth of the BUSD pool is 10 million for on the Rune side, and $1 million for the BUSD. So here we have the ratio, and the ratio is how you get the price. So it's $10 for Rune Or if you were to flip it around the other way, $1 would buy 0.1 of a Rune. But that's the BUSD price. And that's will become important in a minute. So then when we have the BTC pool, we have the BTC ratio. And that's essentially the same when we get the BTC over the Rune. And then that here is essentially saying one Rune will buy that amount of BTC. So once we have these two together, we can actually price these two pools. We can price BTC because we already know the price of Rune being $10 here. And that's essentially exactly what I've got there. We can find the price of BTC. Now I've got a couple of formulas over here, which are really the same thing, just written differently, in order to price BTC. Right, so I've got it here, and this one here uses this bottom formula. So we essentially take the depth of Rune in the BTC pool, and then we times that by the pool price over the BTC price. And in mathematics, division always happens before multiplication. So you could put brackets around here, and it wouldn't make a difference. That's how you actually get the price. Now, if you didn't have the Rune price, you would just use this formula here, which kind of does the same thing. It's just that where this second part of the formula is already done here, and I've gone ahead and calculated that in both different ways. So that's how the pool is priced. It's priced off the ratio of the pool, and then for an asset that's not a stable coin, it would go look at the stable coin pool in order to find out the price of Rune, and then it can get the ratio off that. It's a bit complex. Maybe spend some time looking at that if you need to. What's interesting here is that the Rune price will affect the price of Bitcoin, as it will change the ratio in the Bitcoin pool, but the price of Bitcoin will not impact the price of Rune. So the same is like for USDT F pool in something like Uniswap or SushiSwap. It all works the same way. So we're clear from here on in. I'm using 4,000 as our fantastic number instead of like the rounded here, because 4,000 is just such a better number to work with. So here we have our pool price matches the market price because everything's been arbed out, everything's fantastic. Rune price. And then we have our BTC price, and we have our ratios. And this is going to be important to watch, the actual BTC to Rune ratio when we look at the pool price versus the market price. So let's go ahead and drop the price of Rune by 20% instantly, which obviously never happens. Price action takes time. And then you'll see some interesting things, that the ratio between the pool price and the market price is different because the market price ratio has changed, but the pool price hasn't. So what that does is go ahead and changes the price of Bitcoin by changing the price of Rune. So the BTC price in the pool then is $32,000. So that's obviously selling at a discount comparatively. So when you work out what it is, immediately you're going to have less than if you were to hold in, because the hold price of Bitcoin's 40,000, and this is obviously less than that. So this is where you have impermanent loss being path independent. In other words, it doesn't matter what, they're completely irrespective of ARBs, because ARBs follow a different path, and a different path for ARBs will yield a different result. Impermanent loss is path independent because it doesn't matter, it's direct to path. It just goes straight from one point to another. In other words, you instantly get impermanent loss when the price changes because of the pool ratio change. I have to say, to make this example work, I had to change the price of Rune and the BUSD pool depth instantly. So essentially I've changed the price here of Rune here, as well as the depth on the Rune side of the BUSD pool to get this work, which is not realistic, but it's designed to show how changing the price of Rune will affect the pool price, and showing that impermanent loss is instant and nothing to do with the arbitration process at all, or swappers. Even though I've said in my previous video that funds are lost in the rebalancing process, it's kind of like not true when you really get down to the details. So let's have a look at our position. Our initial position was 4,000 Rune with 1 BTC, and that was the ratio. Right after the market changed, that our position would be 4,000 Rune and 1 BTC, but at a different ratio, and that affects the price. So therefore, our value would be approximately $64,000, because remember, the price of BTC is sitting at 32,000, not 40. So that's if everything was to happen instantly, which is not really possible. So what needs to happen is a BTC pool needs to be moved from its current ratio to the market ratio here. And this is where the arbitration process is, where the ARBs come along and they do that for you. Switching to Visio here, I just wanted to show what's actually happening to the pool, and then we can go back to understand what's happening with our position. So we have 4 million Rune here and 1,000 BTC at our start. And then right after the market has changed, the Runes dropped by about 20%, and that's dramatically changed the price. So if we think of these two things as like value, as in like dollar value, then obviously this has gone down, but this side hasn't gone down at all. And again, that affects the pool price. So what's happened after or during the rebalancing process, that Rune has been added and BTC has been taken away in order to rebalance the pool. The end state is there's going to be more Rune and less BTC once you have a rebalanced pool. And that's where each side are of equal dollar value. And by that change happening, by Rune increasing and BTC being taken out, that changes the ratio, that then changes the pool price and brings the pool back into balance. And that's what we have here. So we have our initial position and our position right after, and then that's where we have the asset value and the Rune value here being 32,000 of your position, because it just matches. And then we go ahead, and once the pool's been repriced, then this is our position here, which is essentially 10%, because if you remember from the previous video, our position was 10% of the pool, which is in THORChain called liquidity units. When you find out 10% of the rebalanced BTC pool, which I had manually put in here, which is this ratio, then this is going to be your asset value. So really the main ones standouts here are your initial value that you've added, which is 80,000, and then it's going to be looking at your the pool after the rebalancing is done by the ARBs, which is going to be about this amount. And what's interesting to notice here is then your position is going to be approximately 71,000 as a liquidity provider, and as a holder, it's going to be about 72,000. So there's going to be a net difference. Like, you can't look at this one because this is directly after incident IL in an unrealistic scenario, but after the ARBs come along, that's going to be the difference here of about $888 when you do a liquidity provider versus holding. So you're going to be short, you're going to be out a little bit here. ARBs come along like every block, every 5 seconds. So that's why you wouldn't see this type of scenario where BTC's priced at 32,000 unless, actually we have seen it in the Ethereum pool at the moment, but in normal situations, you wouldn't see this as ARBs are constantly keeping up with market changes. So let's pretend that we're going to go ahead and withdraw after 100 days and all that type of stuff. I'm going to leave the end balance of the liquidity pool actually here. So this is going to be the position of our liquidity pool. And because we're a liquidity provider and we own 0.1% of the pool, then we are entitled to this amount plus impermanent loss protection, which this is known as our redemption value, which is approximately here. So we're going to go ahead and withdraw the full amount, so 100% of our liquidity, and then we're going to be entitled to impermanent loss protection. So let's go have a look how that works. Impermanent loss protection is detailed here. You can read all about it. P1 in this example is going to be the ratio, so Rune over asset, and there's no P0 to understand what the ratio was at the time, like when you add it. It's all about what the ratio is when you're withdrawing. There's no need for a P0. And then the coverage essentially is putting the assets into the value of Rune, then plussing Rune, and then taking away the withdrawal value. And because it's all using the same ratio, everything kind of then is talking the same language. So here we have what we initially added. So we added one asset, and this is Bitcoin. And then we added 4,000 Rune. And this was actually the ratio at the time. So 4,000 Rune would buy one BTC. When we go ahead and withdraw, when we had this much assets, a little under one BTC, and this much Rune, and this is the ratio here. So I've tried to get, the A0, R0, that's basically 0, A1, R1, P1. And then I've also said that we have protection progress, which is we've been in for 100 days. So we're going to get a full protection here. When we break this down, we basically say our start position here is going to be 9,000 Rune, because it's going to be essentially 5,000 plus 4,000, kind of like when you work it out here. And then when you work out your end position, it's going to be this when you put it into Rune. So that times that plus this is going to be our end position. So we've essentially added 9,000 Rune worth at the start, and now we're withdrawing approximately this amount worth of Rune when we move the asset into a Rune amount. So therefore we have a shortage of Rune of about 111 Rune, and that's what your entitlement's going to be in your impermanent loss protection. Of course, when you times that by the current price being 8, you get approximately $888, which is that deficit here as being a liquidity provider. So when we go ahead and withdraw, I've kind of like got two options here for withdrawing, where we've got our symmetrical. This is supposed to be withdrawal. So sorry about that, good reviews. So we have our symmetrical withdrawal, and that's going to be, what I've done is our initial position, our withdrawal position, plus the Rune side of the house. Now I've just put that on. This is not technically correct. Technically the 111 Rune would be added to your liquidity units, as if you would add them to yourselves, and then the withdrawal would be processed. You can read about it here. So it calculates the new units once your impermanent loss protection has been calculated here. And then it adds those new pool units to your liquidity unit. So it kind of like does an addition here. So add there. So that's how it actually works. I've simplified the example just by increasing the Rune value when withdrawal. So just bear with me for that one. So then when you times that by 8 and you times that by 40,000, you add it all together, you get approximately $72,000 for your withdrawal amount. Asymmetrical withdrawals are, as you know, a lot more complex. It's that really long picture I had to draw for the last video. So you have the BTC side of the asset, which is here. Then you go ahead and you add the ILP swap, which I've tried to do here. So when you add 111 Rune and you swap it out for BTC, you get 0.02 BTC. So you add that on. Then you get the withdrawal swap. So when you take your 4,444 Rune, you swap that into BTC and you take out the slip and all that, you get approximately this amount of BTC. So when you add that together, essentially add that one and your position here, you get 1.798 BTC. So in the last video I said 1.8, I just had rounded it up. That's an approximation including slip fees. Obviously, as I said, the IRP slip would be added to your liquidity units and then withdrawal recalculated. But this is just to give, like I said, an example. Now, it's a little under $72,000 because of the slip, but not by much. And the point I'm trying to really highlight here is that we added to BTC, and when we withdraw, even though we've got impermanent loss protection, that does not guarantee that you get 2 BTC back. We've essentially, of the difference of 0.2018 BTC. So that's kind of like really what inspired the video, is where people think that if I add 2 BTC asymmetrically, because of impermanent loss protection, I'm guaranteed to get 2 BTC out. Well, you know, the answer is no, because as we stated before, because you're adding your 2 BTC and one of them is getting swapped out for Rune, you're exposed to both assets. So you're exposed to the price movements of Rune, as we saw here, because one side of your position, when you add 2 BTC, is going to be in Rune. You're not just staking 2 BTC and getting the benefits of that. Lastly, this includes no fee income or anything like that, no block rewards, nothing about it. This is just straight out a liquidity pool example with, you know, looking like the worst case scenario. Also, this doesn't include transaction fees, withdrawal fees, and all that type of stuff either. Well, that's the video. There's a lot of information here. Don't worry if it doesn't all make sense to you straight away. You can pause, rewatch the video and stuff like that, just to help it, you know, make sense. To recap the main takeaway points of the 2 videos that I've done, asymmetrical and symmetrical additions end up in the same in the pool and are recorded the same with respect to impermanent loss protection. So as I said, like this and this are recorded the same irrespective of how you've added. As a liquidity provider, you have both asset exposure regardless of how you enter the pool. Pools have their own price, which is based on their ratios. We talked about that a lot here. It's not based on the market price at all. Impermanent loss is path independent. It happens with or without ARBs, and it's based off the pool price change. Impermanent loss protection pays the difference between holding both assets and being a liquidity provider. It would not make the difference up to 80,000. It's going to be to 72,000. If you enter 2 BTC, impermanent loss protection will not mean you're guaranteed to get 2 Bitcoin, as you're exposed to both assets and the risk of impermanent loss. Really, just THORChain is mitigating your risk of impermanent loss here, not to asset price exposure. So that's the video. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any comments or questions. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see more content like this. And until next time, thanks. Bye.